Anna.
I'm Ben.
AutoSave, welcome to our channel.
Through to Neon Genesis Evangelion, episode 17. How are you feeling today, Anna?
I am feeling pretty good. I hope that we don't get to see Shinji be scolded at all, even after the fact.
I like that. I'm feeling like I could just keep on living by linking all the enjoyable moments in my life together.
Like a rosary.
Like a rosary.
Mm.
Ready?
Yeah.
Sweet.
You know, I'm realizing now that I think I met what you said, the quote that you brought up in the intro, with the wrong energy.
What? You don't think I should keep living in denial and... Oh.
彼の情緒は大変不安定です。今ここに立つことが良策とは思えます。
さっきの事件、人が我々人類にコンタクトを試みたのではないのかね。
記者の報告からはそれを感じ取れません。
彼の記憶が正しいとすればな。
記憶の外的操作は認められませんが、果たして使徒に心の概念があるのか、人間の思考が理解できるのか、全く不明ですから。
使徒がエヴァを取り込もうとしたという新たな要素がある。予測される第13使徒以降とリンクする可能性は？
それはどういうことなのでしょうか。
君の質問は許されない。
はい。
We're the ones asking questions.
はい。
使徒は知恵を身につき始めています。時間は
あとわずかということか。
The fourth qualified individual.
12号室のクランここで入院してから随分経つわね。
Ooh, his sister?
そうなのに今日も来てるんでしょあの子。
Well, that comes full circle.
必ず顔出してんのよ。妹思いのいいお兄さんよね。
レイ、今日はいいのか？
はい。明日赤木博士のとこ学校へ。
学校はどうだ？
問題ありません。
そうか。ならばいい。
今日の休みはいつもの綾波と間か。
どうしたの？新横須賀。今日も戦艦の追っかけや。バユンが入校しとるんやと。
鈴原。
はいはい。
綾波にプリントを届けておくように。
はい。
消滅、確かに第二支部が消滅したんだな。はい、
全て確認しました。
参ったわね。
上の管理部や調査部は総務部はパニクってましたよ。
で、原因は未だ分からず、この静止衛星からの映像だけで、あとは何も残ってないのよ。
6、5、
Nevada.
4、3、1、コンタクト。
What the fuck?
ひどいわね。ゲリオン4号機並びに半径89キロ以内の関連研究施設はすべて消滅しました。
例の人間も道連れにね。
Several thousand people.
から推測してドイツで修復。
予想される原因は材質の強度不足から設計初期段階のミスまで768通りです。
妨害工作の線もあるわね。多分ディラックの海に飲み込まれたんでしょうね。さっきの初号機。じゃあせっかく直した S2 機関も夢はついえたわね。よくわからないものを無理して使うからよ。それはエヴァも同じだわ。残った3号機はどうするの？ここで引き取ることになったわ。第一支部までは失いたくないみたい。3号機と4号機はあっちが建造権を主張して強引に作っていたんじゃない。起動試験はどうすんの？例のダミーを使うのかしら。これから決めるわ。
We've been hearing about it.
試作されたダミープラグです。例のパーソナルが移植されています。人の心、魂のデジタル化はできません。あくまでフェイク。パイロットの思考の真似をする。ただの機械です。
Interesting.
I mean, we called her a human.
エヴァがそこにパイロットがいると思い込み、シンクロさえすればいい。
Like tricking the Eva.
It also keeps the pilot safe.
まだ問題が残っていますが。
構わん。エヴァが動けばいい。
はい。
機体の運搬は UN に一任してやる。週末には届くだろう。
調整並びに起動試験。
Looks like a brain, doesn't it?
テストパイロット。
プラグはまだ危険です。現候補者の中から
4人目を選ぶか。
一人速やかにコアの準備が可能な
Core
人
can
が
be
います。
prepared.
任せる。レイ、上がっていいぞ。
はい。
食事にしよう。
What?
で飯や飯。学校最大の楽しみやからな。
と持ってきてないの？昨日宿題で作る暇なかったんだよ。この私にお昼。
Wait, he brings your lunch for you?
ねえ、また夫婦喧嘩かいな。
Wow, even Asuka's embarrassed by that.
何を改まって
Love the lipstick on the
松代での
cigarette.
3号機の起動実験は4人目を使うわよ。4人目チルドレンが見つかったの。昨日ね。機関からの報告は受けてないわよ。正式な書類は明日届くわ。
Seems sketchy.
まあいいわ。で、その選ばれた子って誰？よりにもよってこの子なの。候補者を集めて保護してあるのだから。話しづらいわね、この子。エヴァーに乗ってることにプライドかけてるから。レイは例外としてもね、私たちとエヴァーに関わったって、それを一番よく知ってるのがシンジ君だものね。辛い思いはさせたくないわ。でも私たちにはそういうみんなで生き残るためにはね。綺麗事はやめろ。
綾波さんは今日休み。
そらしゃあないな。でも女の家に一人じゃ行けへんしな。
それなら私が一緒に。
シンジ帰り頼むわ。
No, class rep. I don't like coming here.
綾波入るよ。
女の部屋に黙って入るんはようないと思う。
Last time we did.
ここに入れても見ないだけだし。邪魔するよ。
It feels like a prison cell.
なんや、これが女の部屋かいな。
Glass is still there. Not as much blood. Pills. Think she's with Ritsuko?
なんや、まあ、勝手にいじって叱られるで。
片付けてるだけだよ。
わしは手伝わんで。男のすることやない。
でも美里さんに嫌われた。
Ooh.
Shinji has unlocked manipulation.
ほんま変わったな。
何が？
シンジや。正直いけすかんやっちゃと思うとったけど、なんかやるやつとも思えんかったし。要するに余裕なんやろな、そないなことは。お邪魔しとるで。
何？
あれが溜まってたプリントや。
ごめん。勝手に片付けたよ。ゴミ以外は触ってない。
First you're telling me I could be a good mom, then you're cleaning up after me, and I'm embarrassed by that. But there are even holes in the curtains.
ありがとう。感謝の言葉。初めての言葉。
Words I've never used, words of gratitude.
あの人にも言ったことなかったのに。
Wow.
この町がまさにそう守る武装された町だ。
But it's also a target.
海外から逃げ込んでる臆病者の町さ。
City of cowards.
臆病者の方が長生きできる。
Cowards do live longer.
遅れていた第7次建設もいよいよ完成だな。委員会にどう報告するつもりだ。
原因不明さ。
しかしここに来て大きな損失だな。
第2支部はいい。S2 機関もサンプルは失ってにデータが残っている。
そう書いていたぞ。
That's
予定
okay.
内の事故だからな。
慌てて行動表を修正しているだろう。
開門所にない事件も起こる。老人にはいい薬だよ。
Teach the old men a lesson.
せっかくここの迎撃シスターパーティーの一つも予定されていないとは、君はどうなのかな。
いいんですか、カジさん。
Yes.
白木さんや鍵先輩に言っちゃいますよ。
その口を塞ぐ。
お仕事進んでる？
いや、ぼちぼちだな。
私は仕事がありますから、これで。
プライベートに口出すつもりはないけど、うちの若い子に手出さないでくれる？
君の管轄ではないだろう。カツラギならいいのかい。
これからの返事次第ね。マルドゥック機関の秘密知ってるんでしょ？
はって君らしくないな。
なりふり構ってらんないの。余裕ないのよ今。
Don't have that
よ
luxury.
くフォース
Yeah.
チルドレンが見つかる。この裏は何？
一つ教えとくよ。マルドゥック機関は存在しない。影で操っているのはネルフ。
ネルフそのもの。碇試練が
コード707を調べてみ。
707。シンジ君の学校？美里さん、
明日からの出張の打ち合わせだって。
分かったわ、ありがとう。
No, don't leave on a business trip.
たまにはどうだ？お茶でも。
僕、男ですよ。もっと真面目な人だと思ってました。
してる相手だと遠慮がないな。怒り新宿。
すいません。
こっちこそすまない。嫌味のつもりはないんだ。一ついいものを君に見せよう。
スイカ。
ああ、可愛いだろう。俺の
What?
趣味さ。
What a cute hobby. I love it.
何かを作る、何かを育てるのはいいぞ。こととかな。
辛いこともでしょ。
辛いのは嫌いか？
好きじゃないです。
楽しいことを見つけたかい？それもいいさ。けど辛いことを知ってる人間の方がそれだけ人に優しくできる。それは弱さとは違うからな。もしもし。桂木から今からシンクロテストをやるそうだ。
やはりそうだわ。シンジ君のシンクロ率が落ちてきている。どういうこと？なんとも言えないわ。
An influence from what we witnessed?
何かがあったんでしょう。
Yeah.
精神的なものが。でも本人には明日正式に通達されるわよ。
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's like Toji or Toji's sister.
なんかやったの？いや、心当たりないわ。
鈴原当時君ね。
Was that Ritsuko's voice?
昨日の新横須賀どうだったの？
バッチシ。ちょいと気になる情報を仕入れたんだけど。
エヴァ3号機。
そう。
It's crazy that it's coming from Ida.
完成したんだろ。初白の第二実験場で起動試験をやるって噂知らないのか？決まってないんだろ。
わからないよそんなの。
してくんないかな、ミサトさん。なあ、シンジからも頼んでくれよ。乗りたいんだよ。
Oh.
本当に知らないんだよ。
じゃあ4号機が欠番になったって話は？
何それ？
Disappeared.
これも知らないの？大騒ぎだったみたいだぜ。
God.
本当に？
おそらくは。
Ida's such a sleuth.
何も聞いてない。
しかし当時のやつ遅いな。
我々人類はできています。
遅れてすまんです。
話は聞いてる。席に着きなさい。
さあ帰ろうぜ。
当時は？
あいつは遅くなるよ。当番だからな。
He doesn't look happy.
鈴原、終盤なんだから。と机並べて日誌つけなさいよ。
昼飯まだやったんやで。終わったらやるわ。
購買部のお弁当だね。
作ってくれるやつもおらんからな。
鈴原くん。名前は児玉とのぞみ。いつもお弁当私が作ってるんだけど、こう見えても私意外と料理うまかったりするんだ。いつもお弁当の材料余っちゃうの。
それはもったいないな。
It wouldn't be a waste if we...
いくらでも手伝うで。
Yes! Yes! Oh, he walked into that so perfectly.
カジさん。
アスカか。すまない。今ちょっと忙しいんだ。
ミサトには合ってるくせに。
And for Shinji.
コナン、今はダメだ。
Don't tell her that.
シンクロデータね。え、4人？これどういうこと？
That was a cool shot.
チルドレンがなんでこいつなの？
He...
いや、わかんないわ。なんなのこれ。
I thought we said Asuka wouldn't care.
It's...
Wait,
what the
is
fuck?
that the new Eva?
What the fuck?
Is it gonna be really freaking cool?
No, but it looked like Adam spear like crucified. Okay, that was Neon Genesis Evangelion, episode 17. Ida is gonna be very upset and very jealous.
He is really gonna be jealous. He's like, hey, can you put a good word in for me? You know, maybe I could pilot an Eva someday, you know? Please do that for me. Little does he know. He's the one that has all this extra information, and he's able to give Shinji a bunch of information, but he didn't know this.
I really wonder what Toji's feelings are and emotions are going into hearing about this. Like, it's so hard not to connect it to his initial feelings and reaction to Shinji being a pilot of an Evangelion and seeing what harm and devastation a battle with an angel can look like and who it can hurt.
Right, he's seen not only what the kind of aftermath of someone close to him getting hurt looks like from this war that they're basically in. But he has also been a little too up close and personal when him and Ida went to the surface, you know, when they were supposed to be hiding in a shelter and Shinji had to inevitably end up saving them. So he's also had an experience a lot of kids haven't. He's been inside an Evo before, and he's also been up close and personal with what would be inevitably his enemy that he will have to be fighting. So I like starting that conversation off of how does he feel right now? How can we begin to wonder how he feels right now? From the expression and how it's drawn each time we see him, the fact that he's staying after school to play basketball in the way that he is, it seems to me that there are reservations here. Like, he's not as excitable as Ida paints for us that Ida would be if he was given this opportunity. And I think that if I start to think that he might feel reservations about it or worry about it, my mind goes to what he says to class rep is that no one cooks for him. And if you open that up a little bit bigger and you think about the beginning of the episode and how often he goes to visit his sister, it really paints this picture that he is who his sister has to rely on. And if he ends up being so directly in harm's way, wouldn't that be a reservation he would have? A worry that he would have is that he could get hurt. And then who was there to visit his sister and be there for his sister?
I like that conversation. I think it's interesting to discuss even, does Toji deserve to be an Evangelion pilot? Not in the sense of like, oh, you're really cool and you're really special, so you deserve to do this. But if you've already been through enough pain or loss, being subjected to the treatment that you could potentially have or be forced to do or, you know, highly suggested to do as an Evangelion pilot, that's a lot of emotional distress and pressure and anxiety you have to deal with while already dealing with your sister being in the state that she is. It's a difficult situation to go in and try to be a foundational rock as an Evangelion pilot.
Mm-hmm. When you brought up the idea of like the wordage of like, does he deserve it? What it took my mind to is how does he even become this? I think when we started Evangelion, Neon Genesis Evangelion off, I had felt like there has to be something about these kids that is fated, is prophesized. There's something in their DNA even specifically that makes them good pilots, and we just have to find out who are the perfect kids. But it seems much more now like he's just chosen out of maybe even convenience, like we need someone here and we can make it work. There was the word like prepare the core, that we can be doing something to this kid. He's susceptible. He's able to be molded maybe based on whatever their criteria is, but it feels a little less special and fated to become and be chosen as a child than I had ever previously thought that it was.
See, I think that I can easily go in that direction with you, but then you also have the idea that the Murdoch Institute doesn't exist. We're getting Code 707, it making Misato think of Shinji's whole school.
Mm-hmm.
If we're trying to add this up there, like with the evidence that we have to suggest familial connections within Evangelions, we could, like, granted, I guess 03 and 04 were both created and built within the United States, but there is room to speculate that Unit 03 could be connected to a member of Toji's family in some way.
Well, we bring up what we didn't lose with this kind of vanishing is the data. The data is in Germany. And so what you're opening here is, what is the code? It is 707, I think it was. And that is
Kaji was talking about?
Yes, the Kaji
Code
was talking
707.
about. 707. That is the school, is what Misato says. The school is filled with children whose parents have probably, a lot of these kids have parents that work for Nerve. Nerve probably has access to, like we talk about the personality transplant OS, Nerve probably has access to data of a lot of these individuals that work for them, right? So is the school basically a breeding ground / training ground for possible future children that could be EVA pilots?
I think it's interesting to talk about.
Why else would there be a code that's actually the school and it's representing what is the report or the institute that puts out the report that chooses the next child?
Mm-hmm. The image that we get of Unit 03 being carried on this fucking awesome jet, It's on a crucifix, and it makes me think so similar to seeing the idea of the angel that we think is Adam being speared with the lance while being crucified. It makes me think of that so clearly, but at the same time, that's in a completely different place because this is coming from America.
This is just a convenient and efficient way to transport the Eva. There's nothing to read into this at all.
This is just how we should transport all of our goods in the shape of crucifixes.
It just looks super cool. It's iconic, if anything. Yeah, but we got like a little bit of an up close of what this Eva might look like.
It looks fucking awesome, dude. It has some
like darker colors. I think that it's like a navy blue, maybe even with like a magenta or a burgundy.
It's so cool.
It goes with Toji. I think Toji's gonna look awesome with this Eva, like how Asuka's Eva is like so Asuka.
Stuff like this makes me worried for fucking Toji's life, though. Not the fact that he gets to be an Evangelion pilot, potentially, but the fact that the next thing we see is Class Rep cooking up a meal, and, like, the entire, like, thought and emotion behind that friendship and relationship right there makes me scared for Toji's life.
Right. So Toji's connection to the idea of, like, how emotionally stable would he be being given this position with what's happened to him in his life and his family, the fact that this feels rushed, that we've chosen this kid to be a pilot, and a character is finally going out of their way to show maybe that they have a crush on Toji and is cooking for him.
It doesn't seem like they had an abundant amount of food, like how she was saying, like, oh, we always have leftovers.
This was a crafted story on her part so that it didn't seem like she was going out of her way to cook for him. And he latched onto the bait so perfectly, so well. Chef's kiss to how he responded. But yeah, all of these factors added together don't bode well in the sense of like a viewer viewing the safety of this character in the future. It's like, oh, there's like kind of 3 strikes against him where they could totally hurt this guy, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, Shinji would not want that to happen either.
Man, Ritsuko had a very interesting role this episode. On one hand, she was talking about like the dummy plugs, right? And then on the other hand, we're talking about the incident in Nevada. And I want to talk about Nevada first.
Before the dummy plugs?
Yeah. So Unit 04 at all related research facilities within an 89-kilometer radius is gone. It's vanished. And also several thousand people. When we're talking about all of the different hypotheses that we could come up with for what this was and what the cause was, Ritsuko makes sure to focus back in on the vanishing aspect of it and suggests that in all probability it was swallowed by a sea of Dirac, which obviously comes from last episode as well, and would add up into what we saw happen to Shinji in Unit 01. But terrifying fucking thought to know that this can happen at 2 places in the world.
Well, yeah, think about Shinji, like, losing oxygen and stuff in the Eva before being able to get out of the situation he was in last episode. Yeah, they might be vanished, but what's the probability we could get those thousands of people back?
What does that look like for them? Is it instant death? We saw Shinji within an Evangelion after getting swallowed.
Just like a protective shield for at least 16 hours.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, but we just have to keep phrasing it as vanished because, you know, we don't have bodies to be like, yep, they're dead.
So, and then we get the idea of the dummy plug. And getting clarification on the dummy plug is really interesting, right? We're using it within Ray's personal data, and the idea of utilizing that instead of an actual pilot, one, definitely safer for the actual pilot, but that's not necessarily the intention here, why we're talking about it. But we're also given a couple details. So this is the dummy plug prototype. Ray's personal data has been loaded into it, but it's not really possible to digitize a human mind and soul. Ultimately, it's a fake, an imitation, just a machine that emulates a pilot's thinking process. I'll transmit a signal pattern to the Eva. As long as the Eva believes there's a pilot and synchronizes, that's enough. There's still some problems with it. That's not important, as long as the Eva's activated sufficient. Yes, sir. I didn't like the look on Gendo's face here. Like, just a machine that emulates a pilot's thinking process. Like, I don't know. I like we've always said in that hierarchy of information stuff, everything that's going on could be somebody else's prerogative and what they know, and it being more than what other people know. I know that Ritsuko is obviously incredibly intelligent, but it just makes me uneasy seeing Gendo in the shot.
It reminds me of, I think it was last episode where Asuka it was mostly black across her face with the bright blue eyes. Similar kind of energy to how things are colored and what the scene and shot actually looks like of the face. But I would say I felt a little okay with Gendo with this scene because of the fact that it feels like he's trying to work toward a world where the children pilots don't have to be within the EVA. And I like that he's trying to work toward that world. And if anything, I soften to him because of that idea.
Is that putting us, like, putting it on for him, though?
Maybe. I don't know. But I'm glad that we are working toward prototypes where the kids wouldn't have to be in there. Because also what we're dealing with in this episode is the psychological damage that can happen upon being a pilot of an EVA. Not just the life-threatening aspect, but the psychological damage that can interfere in future operations. If it's just the pilot's thinking patterns, basically, and data that is uploaded into this dummy plug, into this imitation of them, then the actual pilot can't get hurt in any regard, right? You just have to convince the EVA. Like this, you convince this computer system / who even knows what an EVA actually is, but you gotta convince it that there's actually a pilot in there.
Yeah, but what does that, like, look like in terms of it being piloted? Like, is it just going to be the closest, like, iteration of what, like, imagine, like, a hologram of Rey in there, and it's doing, like, it's making the choices and saying the things that Rey would make
like
based
NPC.
Off of what the, imprint was, if you will?
I think it'd be like how an NPC in a video game is programmed to, at 5 o'clock, say it's like Stardew Valley, I don't know, like 5 o'clock, they're in their house, and at 7 o'clock, they're at the bar, Like, it's just going through the pattern of how the strategy that Rey or Asuka or Shinji would normally employ, their thought patterns they would normally do in a fight, Just the actions they would normally do. Which I wonder if we'll ever actually see in action. Like, this is a prototype, yes, but we're obviously showcasing it to the viewer here, and it's something we want to possibly move forward with. Will we get to see it in action in a fight in the future? Will there be... We have a new child, so I don't imagine there's going to be an inability for us to have access to our actual pilots. Should I be looking at it... I thought of a way I could look at it negatively. Is it a safeguard for if the pilot actually dies?
Well, yeah, for sure.
I didn't even think about it like that until this moment. Like, it's like a safeguard. You'll forever have that child as a pilot, even if they die.
No, like, exactly. Like obviously how my mind went first in the idea of dummy plugs, it's like, oh yeah, protecting pilots, that's an added bonus. But, like, in terms of intention or what you actually get out of this, granted, there is that room for this copy, this decoy not being as capable and as functional in critical situations as a real pilot.
Correct.
However, it would make it so you wouldn't need to depend as heavily on a conscious person that has their own feelings.
And also think back to one of the attacks that we've had where Asuka, Shinji, and Rey had to find a way to sneak back into Nerve, because everything shut down because of the Angel attack. We wouldn't have to deal with the fact of, like, oh no, our pilots are at school. How do we get them in time to be able to deal with this Angel attack? So yeah, it's a protection for Nerve and a protection for the pilots, but who was it intended to benefit the most?
I had so much fear about Toji this episode. I just have so much fear going forward. Even when it comes down to something that, like, starts as silly, talking about, like, Kaji has a secret passion for growing watermelons. I want to talk about that. I love that. But he had a fantastic line to Shinji, which was, knowledge of suffering makes you all the more capable of kindness to others. And when I'm like, fuck, knowledge of suffering makes you all the more capable of kindness to others. Like, surely Toji won't go through even more fucking pain and you're going to be there for him because of this shit. Or if something happens to Toji and you're going to be empathetic to class rep.
I mean, Toji would be able to be in that boat of having knowledge of suffering, therefore can be kinder to others.
But, like, what if during a fight with Toji in it, the hospital gets crushed and his sister actually dies? I don't know.
Oh my god. Oh, right. Like, the idea of, are they emotionally compromised? How easy
No. Like, the idea that we're setting Shinji up narratively as somebody with the information that there is more to suffering and a way to utilize the suffering that you've been through, and you're able to twist it and apply it to others in a positive way. If that is the door that's opening, what situation would happen with the remaining characters in the series where Shinji would need to be able to be capable of giving that kindness to others based off of his own experience of suffering?
Like a bigger and maybe more dangerous example of how when we went to drop off the papers for Rei, Toji gets to watch as Shinji picks up the trash. Like a bigger, more dangerous example of that.
Also, in that scene when Rei's blushing in response to the trash being picked up, I had no idea what her reaction was going to be. We've seen her reaction about the motherly comments and everything, but for a second I was like, oh god, I hope she doesn't get upset. What if Rei's like one of those people who you go into their house and it's a mess and you start cleaning their house even though you probably shouldn't be, and they're like, wait, what the fuck? No, I know where everything is. And they do know where everything is, even though it's messy. If you ask them to go pick up that blue paper clip on the ground, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Go 3 feet from their bedside table under one of the legs and it's there, you know? Right. I didn't know if that's how Rei was going to react. But
it seems much more typical, which would be there's a gratitude with it, which obviously we'll get to the line. There's like I'm glad that there was someone that wanted to kind of support me in this way or be helpful in this way. It was very sweet of them to go out of their way for me. But then there's also the undeniable embarrassment of someone seeing kind of the state of your living place and maybe even the specific person. Like if you think about the fact that it's Shinji, would Rei have had this reaction to anyone else picking up the trash in her bedroom? Or is it because it's Shinji that picks it up that has her feel more embarrassed that he did something or more thankful that he did something? And why I say is it special that it's Shinji is because she has that thinking as she's laying in the bed. Thank you. I said thank you. Words of gratitude. She's never even said them to Gendo.
Words I've never used. Then we get the glasses of Gendo. I'd never even said them to him. Mm-hmm. It's interesting, like seeing all the characters grow and develop in their own way. We have Toji himself giving like credit to Shinji and how far he's come as a person. And then we're able to see Shinji even more in this episode when he's sitting with Kaji, and Kaji's like, wow, when you really open up to somebody that you're pretty blunt. I'm paraphrasing here, but the idea of seeing that change and growth within Rei as well is apparent and there.
Right. Like we've seen a lot happen to these characters and we've seen a lot of growth. But I would say going forward, I'm a little bit worried about Shinji psychologically and with piloting the Eva. Obviously, we start the episode off, we kick it off with Misato being interviewed, and she's bringing up the...
She rejected the interrogation for Shinji. Fuck. That was awesome.
And you could just think in that moment, she's trying to just protect him from having to deal with something that's uncomfortable. Or you could think of it like maybe there is actually something to this and there is something to what she's saying. Well, we go on further into the episode and we find that there is issues in terms of the syncing, the synchronization. And I wonder how that is going to come up later on. Like, what is it that happened to him? And is that really going to affect him being a pilot?
Well, I think it's interesting because like there are things that are happening in terms of his psyche and in terms of his mentality that happened last episode on screen in his own head and in his own consciousness while he was on the verge of death. And there was also that this episode when he was conscious, alive, talking about his feelings with Kaji. Like it's a step forward in terms of Shinji thinking about the totality of everything that's happened to him and his position in the world. Will that be a bad thing for who? Like, in terms of piloting an Eva, or in terms of piloting an Eva to do a specific thing, to be bad as like a perfect soldier that you'd want?
If he grows in one area or one aspect, that maybe take him 2 steps back in a different aspect. If he was at the beginning of the series the perfect just the perfect pilot that you could tell to do whatever and he would do whatever, and he's now kind of growing into this young man that'll even be blunt with you, and maybe the slight manipulation he does with Toji in Rei's room, that he's kind of coming into his own as a person. Does that then interfere with what made him maybe a good pilot at the beginning?
Or not necessarily like good, but like it would just add another complexity to it. Also, I don't even think that like it was necessarily manipulation from Shinji there to Toji, but like him, that being the first thing that you think of, being like, oh well, this is someone you care about, and that wouldn't.
Don't you want to impress Misato?
Yeah, that's a thing that wouldn't impress her. You know, just that being the first thing to think about, and him having to know Misato enough to be able to say that to somebody is great.
And and be friends enough with Toji to be able to have comfortably a playful banter in the way that he does.
Yeah. One of my last things I want to talk about are the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Okay.
I feel like in this episode, they were utilized to reinforce structurally where Nerve sits within the hierarchy of the world, of like the who's in charge of who. Like, we get the Kaji idea about the Murdoch Institute, and that already kind of one-ups Nerve and what they're actually doing behind the scenes. But being able to see Gendo talking in such a way that's like, yeah, you know, Seal are probably like freaking the fuck out right now, but incidents can happen. Incidents can occur that don't necessarily coincide with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And him saying that in that way gives like me, I look at him with more confidence of how in charge and behind the scenes, like how he's at the tippy top of everything.
Yeah, I've got to teach these old men a lesson. Like, they're too comfortable with the hope. If anything, like, they are in a dangerous position with the fact that they are believing so blindly that everything will go as planned. And if it doesn't go as planned, they would probably panic and not be able to recover themselves enough to make an efficient game plan going forward. And, you know, that will cloud their judgment. We got to teach them a lesson that not everything is necessarily going to go as they planned, and they need to be ready at any moment's notice to kind of jump on what's happening and figure out a game plan. And, you know, who's going to be perfect for that? Gendo, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have anything else?
I think I have a few more things just to say, kind of a lot more like compliments, I guess, to this episode. This thing's not necessarily a compliment, it's just something I wanted to bring up because it makes me think about the future episodes, the future angels that we will fight. Specifically, when we start the episode off, we have that idea of like, was the angel trying to communicate with Shinji? What if they ever decided to not work solo? And so we put out these things in the universe that could be something the viewer will see later on with next angel interactions.
Like the idea of the angels gaining intelligence we get from, I think, Gendo.
Mm-hmm. So what are we going to see from the next angels that we meet up and have to fight with? What's
predicted 13th?
If Shinji, Rei, Asuka have had to fight these less intelligent angels, and Toji is now joining the ranks, what is the first angel that Toji has to fight gonna be like in comparison to like the first couple episodes of this show and the angels that Shinji fought?
That's a good point. Hopefully he won't have to fight alone, though.
Hopefully he won't have to fight alone. I agree with that. My last thing is that this is my compliment and my appreciation to kind of the pacing and how we started the episode off and how we ended it. The civilians vanishing, it's not a super positive thing. Obviously, it's a very scary thing. But I really liked how we kind of start the episode off with Toji in the hospital, walking to see his sister. And we're getting that personal empathetic thing that the viewer can feel, the characters that we know and we now care about, Shinji's friends. We're getting to see the harm that can come from being in a city like this, New Tokyo 3, near Nerve. We're getting to see the harm in person, the personal effects of the fights with the angels. And then we get the broader scale, like, oh, it's in another country, it's in Nevada, this happened to 2,000 people. It's a bunch of people, but it happened so distant from us. But it really brings up the idea of like how unsafe it is to be in this city that you probably feel safe being in. It's an incredible target on your back, basically, to be in this city, and probably in that city in Nevada as well. and how these are just civilians that are probably, I'm sure that some of that thousands of people weren't just civilians, but probably a lot of them were civilians and didn't actually work for Nerve or weren't a part of Eva's fighting angels. And I feel like starting the episode off with using Toji in that way, I would have thought that's all we were using him for in this episode, was just the tie-in with the vanishing. And obviously I was wrong, because then he ends up becoming the next child to pilot an Eva by the end of the episode. So that's my compliment. It's just the way that they paced things and the way that they laced things together.
I love the shot of Asuka that I have on screen. It's so good.
When she's like looking at to see who the next kid is. She's
Yeah,
like, why
and
are there
seeing
4
that it's
reports?
Toji. It's so cool. I
Yeah.
love the overexposure for the monitor and the reflection of her eyes. I guess my last thing is just, again, bringing up the Kaji watermelon sequence and Shinji being like, I'm a boy, right? And I think that it's really interesting to have a character like Kaji, especially right after him saying what he did to Misato, entrust something that's very private and real to him to Shinji. Because if you're an individual who is holding so many lies internally and is already being extremely shady and being like a double agent, then you'd expect them to hold the real things about them even closer to their chest and never tell a soul. So the idea that he shared that with Shinji was really cool to me.
What do you think about the fact that he made time for Shinji in this way, but he's obviously so busy, and he's like, Asuka, I'm too busy for you, and Asuka in her head is like, for anyone but Misato, but we see him take time with Shinji. Is that just because it conveniently is a time where he has nothing that he's working on, or nothing
I
that
think
he's doing,
that
or is
he
it
was in the
because of
break room
Misato?
there and he had time there, but in this instance it's specifically trying to like, okay, we have fucking work to do. Toji's on his way.
Oh, it's like
Get shit
break
done.
time. You
Yeah.
happened to talk to me while I was on my break, but now you're talking to me while I'm at my computer doing work.
Exactly.
Okay,
You
so
got
there's
it.
nothing to read into.
All right, you good?
Yep.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, subscribe. We hope to see you next time.